Dan Neil obviously came out wearing the captain's armband. It is going to be a discussion this season, I suppose. Tavernier away, Butland away, Suter away, or looking like he's going to be away. Those are the three guys who kind of wore it, most often last season. Tavernier was club captain. It seemed to go to Butland or Suter, depending on who was playing. They're all gone. I mean, the leadership team's been completely ripped up. Andrew Cavan certainly spoke about, not quite saying it in these words, but filling the team with captains, I suppose. I think maybe in the UK we do tend to overstate the role of a captain on the pitch, but fans want to know who will be that leader on the pitch. Can we expect to see Dan Neil with that armband, or do you see other guys? Obviously Shankland had been Hearts captain.
I think right now it's probably between Shankland and Dan Neil. It's a toss-up.
Pure Romans as well is another one I've kind of seen mentioned.
Yeah, I think he discussed that at the weekend in terms of McInnes. He sat down with us. I mean, I think you'll find that it's going to be between Dan Neil and Lawrence Shankland. And I must admit, I think the sort of fairy tale aspect of us all said, it'll be Shankland finally getting his move to Rangers, having worked with McInnes last year. But there's part of me that just thinks it might be Dan Neil. We again, one of the raft of interviews we carried out over the weekend was with Dan Neil. It's going out tomorrow, so I'll try not to break any embargoes in that one. But what I'll say is that having spoke to him, really, really impressed with him as a character. A really intelligent guy. Really, speaks very well. But I think crucially shows a real good temperament. And even if I go back to his Rangers TV interview when he signed it, he spoke about wanting that challenge of coming to a big club. I think we can be we can scoff a wee bit at clubs like Sunderland and say they don't win anything, so they're not big clubs in the sense that Rangers, Celtic are big clubs. But in English context, if you've got a stadium that can hold 50,000 people and you're pretty much selling that out every week, regardless of the level of success you've had, even though they've been down to League One at times in recent memory. They're a big club and they come with their own huge pressures. So him coming up here, he wants that. He wants to feel that intensity. I think you'll find that the intensity is even more ramped up from what he's used to. But the fact that he wants that, he feels he has to have that kind of pressure on his back to get the best out of him. I think that's to be encouraged. It's to be applauded. I mean, I think we saw, especially last season, I'm thinking of guys like Max Arns, Joe Rothwell, who looked utterly shell-shocked by the intensity up here. I genuinely think they thought they were coming up here to stroll it. I had no idea what they were walking into, and it showed. Whereas I think Dan Neil, and again, this is famous last words, this might block my face 3 weeks into the season, but from the first impressions, and this is all I'm going off, obviously, I think he's a guy who gets the environment he's walking into, he understands it. And I think the difference is this time is when you think about Russell Martin and Kevin Thelwell making these decisions last year. I think it's fair to say even those guys weren't quite aware of what they were taking on. I think that's absolutely fair to say, judging by the way things went last year. There's no way that Derek McInnes doesn't grasp the enormity of what he's taking on and the type of characters that is going to be required to do that. So, hence why I think Rangers fans should probably be a little bit more encouraged by Dan Neil. He captain Sunderland. He was helped get them out of League One into the Championship, and 3 years later he helps get them into the Premier League. Okay, he only played 3 games in the Premier League last season before being allowed to go to Ipswich. Lost his place to Granit Xhaka, but I don't think you can grumble at in the way that he performed last year. Sunderland, having been away from the top flight for 8 years, getting themselves into Europe, finished 7th. I mean, so if you're going to lose your place in the team, it should always be done, and you're hoping that whoever replaces you can, takes the club to new levels. So the fact that Daniel, lost his place last year to that calibre player, it's not to Daniel's detriment in that sense, and I think Rangers fans should be excited by him. From everything we've heard so far, I think they played a couple of other sort of bounce games at the training ground. Obviously, the one over in Spain, he's been the standout performer so far. So, Shankland, having only just joined up with the squad last week, I think his second session with the team was on Friday night when they arrived in Spain. That was the only second time he sort of trained with the rest of the squad. He's still to sort of put his stamp and show his influence around the dressing room. But listen, it's a fantastic headache for Derek McInnes to have, isn't it? I mean, last year there wasn't enough leaders in the dressing room. There wasn't enough guys prepared to stand up and produce their best performances when things were going well, or hold other players to account. We all heard a million times about how James Tavernier wasn't your traditional sort of rant and raver. He was a guy who led by action rather than words. And well, I think Rangers need somebody that does a bit of all of that. I think they need somebody who'll go out and perform at his best when things are going poorly, but will also turn around to a teammate and go, "I'll get your finger out because this isn't good enough." And so, judging by everything I've seen from Dan Neil so far, I think he'll be somebody who can do that. It remains to be seen whether he's the one that gets the armband. If he doesn't, I still think he'll like that captain, even if he's not the one given the honour of leading the team out. So again, as I say, that can only be good for Rangers.